If you think your Social Security is safe, think again. 7 massive changes are coming that could slash your benefits, and the clock is already ticking. Before we break this down, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're the only channel bringing you the Social Security updates. The mainstream media isn't telling you updates that could decide whether your retirement stays secure or slips away. Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that the Social Security benefits you've depended on for years, the very lifeline that keeps the bills paid and food on the table, are suddenly about to change. Not just a small adjustment, not just a few dollars shaved off here and there, but sweeping changes that will affect millions of Americans. Changes that could mean the difference between a stable retirement and a constant financial struggle. This isn't some far-off rumor or a distant political debate. This is real, this is happening, and it's going to impact the lives of seniors from coast to coast. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on what's really going on inside America's Social Security system, exposing 7 major changes that have been quietly moving forward, changes that could lead to serious pension cuts for millions. These aren't just numbers on a government spreadsheet. These are real stories, real people, and real consequences. For decades, Social Security has been the bedrock of retirement in the United States. It's the promise that after a lifetime of hard work, you'll have some financial stability to fall back on. But what happens when that promise starts to crack? What happens when the very system you've paid into with every paycheck is suddenly under threat? For years, we've heard whispers about the Social Security Trust Fund running out of money, about Congress needing to fix the system, about younger generations maybe never seeing a dime from it. But now, we're no longer talking about maybe. We're talking about proposals, legislation, and budget adjustments that are actively being discussed, changes that would impact not just future retirees but also current beneficiaries. And while some of these changes are being packaged as necessary reforms, make no mistake, for millions of seniors, they could mean less money in the bank each month. The first shift we need to talk about is one that's been creeping into policy conversations for years: the full retirement age. Right now, for most people retiring today, the full retirement age sits around 66 or 67 depending on your birth year. But proposals are already on the table to push that age even higher. That might sound like a small change, what's another year or two, right? But for someone in their early 60s who's been planning around a set timeline, this could mean thousands of dollars lost in early benefits or years of extra work in a job they can barely keep up with. For people in physically demanding roles, nurses, construction workers, warehouse employees, this isn't just about working longer, it's about whether they can even physically make it that far without burning out or breaking down. Then there's the quiet but devastating shift in how cost of living adjustments, or COLAs, might be calculated in the future. Every year, Social Security benefits are adjusted to keep pace with inflation, or at least, that's the idea. But in recent years, seniors have complained that COLAs haven't come close to matching the real cost of living. The formula currently used is based on the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, which doesn't accurately reflect the spending patterns of retirees, especially with healthcare costs soaring. Now, there's talk of changing the formula in a way that could slow down benefit increases even more. If this happens, over time, your benefits wouldn't just fall behind, they'd be left in the dust compared to actual expenses, meaning every year your Social Security check would buy you less and less. Another massive change being floated is in how much high earners pay into Social Security. Right now, there's a cap on how much of your income is taxed for Social Security, and once you hit that cap, currently just over $160,000, you stop paying into the system for the rest of the year. Some lawmakers want to lift or even remove that cap entirely, which would bring in more funding for the program. On the surface, that might sound like good news, it could strengthen the system. But here's the catch: changes like this often come packaged with other adjustments to balance things out, such as means testing benefits. That means if you've saved diligently your whole life or have other income sources, you could end up getting reduced Social Security payments simply because you've been too successful. In other words, you paid in just like everyone else, but you'd get less out in the end. And speaking of means testing, this is another change gaining momentum in policy circles. The argument is that wealthier retirees don't need the full Social Security benefit, so why not scale it back for them and preserve the funds for those who do? While that might sound fair in theory, in practice it punishes people who planned ahead, saved for retirement, and made sacrifices to be financially responsible. It turns Social Security from a universal benefit, something everyone gets because everyone paid into it, into a welfare program that's selectively handed out. This not only changes the nature of the system but could also undermine public support for it over time. Perhaps one of the most alarming shifts being discussed involves the early retirement penalty. Right now, if you start claiming Social Security before your full retirement age, your benefits are permanently reduced. But there are proposals to make those reductions even steeper, to encourage people to wait longer before claiming. For someone who's been laid off at 62 and can't find work, or for someone dealing with health issues that make working impossible, these deeper cuts would be devastating. They'd be forced to either take much smaller checks for the rest of their life or somehow survive with no benefits until they reach the new full retirement age. We also can't ignore the push to privatize parts of Social Security. While full privatization seems unlikely in the immediate future, there are active discussions about allowing people to divert a portion of their Social Security taxes into private investment accounts. Supporters claim this would give people more control over their retirement savings, but history shows that markets can crash, investments can fail, and the people who would suffer the most from those risks are the very retirees who can least afford it. And once money is diverted away from the general Social Security fund, it weakens the system for everyone else, accelerating the very funding crisis these reforms claim to address. Finally, there's the ever-present threat of across-the-board benefit cuts. If Congress fails to take decisive action before the Social Security Trust Fund runs short, which current projections suggest could happen within the next decade, automatic cuts of around 20% could kick in for all beneficiaries. This wouldn't be a targeted change, it would hit everyone, from the wealthiest retirees to the seniors living below the poverty line. Imagine getting a letter one day telling you that starting next month, your benefits will be 20% smaller. How do you adjust your life overnight to that kind of income shock? For many, it would mean moving in with family, skipping medications, or falling behind on rent and utilities. Each of these 7 changes on its own would be significant. Together, they represent a complete reshaping of the Social Security system as we know it. And the truth is, these ideas aren't just theoretical. They're being discussed in committee meetings, written into policy drafts, and slipped into budget proposals right now. But here's what's even more concerning: most Americans don't even know it's happening. The news coverage is often buried, the language is full of technical jargon, and the timeline is stretched just far enough into the future that it doesn't feel urgent until suddenly it is. So what can you do about it? First, you need to be informed. If you're watching this right now, you're already ahead of most people. But knowledge alone isn't enough. You need to pay attention to the politicians you vote for, the policies they support, and the bills they're backing. Social Security isn't some abstract government program. It's your money, your future, and your security. And if enough people push back against cuts and changes that hurt retirees, lawmakers will have no choice but to listen. The next step is planning for the possibility that these changes will happen. That means taking a hard look at your retirement strategy, finding ways to diversify your income, and making sure you're not overly dependent on Social Security alone. It might mean working with a financial advisor, cutting expenses now to prepare for a leaner future, or finding part-time work in retirement to fill the gap. It's not fair that you should have to do this after decades of paying into the system, but ignoring the problem won't make it go away. For the millions of Americans already living on Social Security, these proposals feel like a betrayal. You've held up your end of the bargain. You paid in with every paycheck, trusting that when the time came, Social Security would be there for you. Now, it feels like the rules are being rewritten just as you're about to collect. And for younger workers, the message is clear: don't count on the system to look the same when it's your turn. This isn't fearmongering, it's the reality we're facing. In the end, the fight over Social Security isn't just about numbers, budgets, or economic forecasts. It's about people. It's about the grandmother who worked 2 jobs her whole life and is now being told she might have to get by on less. It's about the disabled veteran who relies on every penny of his monthly check to keep a roof over his head. It's about the millions of ordinary Americans who played by the rules and now find the rules changing mid-game. That's why it's so important to speak up, stay informed, and demand that Social Security remains what it was always meant to be: a guarantee, not a gamble. Before you click away, I want to speak directly to you, the person who's concerned about your future, your parents' future, or your grandparents' future. If you found this information valuable, make sure you subscribe right now, because this channel is committed to exposing the truth about what's happening to Social Security, pensions, and retirement in America. We bring you the updates the mainstream media buries, and we break them down so you understand exactly how they'll impact you and your family. And trust me, the changes we talked about today are only the beginning. Bigger shifts are coming, and you deserve to be prepared for them. Don't let these decisions happen in the dark. Stay with us, stay informed, and together we can hold those in power accountable. Because your retirement isn't just a line item in a budget, it's your life. And it's worth fighting for.